The story begins with something strange that I couldn't understand until now. When I was a child, I couldn't remember why my parents decided to stop giving me medicine, but they said that the medicine turned me into a prostitute. This sounded odd and unrelated to reality, but at that moment, I couldn't grasp why they thought this way. However, looking back now, I realized that it wasn't just the medicine that made me into a prostitute, but perhaps it was the strange changes in my emotions and behaviors that led them to make such a decision. Back then, every time I took the medicine, a feeling of emptiness overwhelmed me. I couldn't feel anything except a numbness and lack of life. There were no strong emotions, only a state of non-existence, as if I wasn't really myself. My parents began to worry and noticed the drastic change. They said that I was like a zombie, no longer something to talk to, no longer someone to share with. Those quiet afternoons, I would sit there, unable to say a word, not feeling angry or upset like I used to. I would just sit, staring into the empty space in front of me, not noticing anything around me. This made my parents more anxious. They couldn't understand why I had become like this. Every time they asked me about how I felt when taking the medicine, I would remain silent, unsure of how to answer. Those questions didn't matter to me anymore. I simply existed in a vague space. No clear emotions. That's when they decided to stop the medicine. But if stopping the medicine was the answer to this change, then why do I still have these strange memories haunting me to this day? After stopping the medicine, I began to realize something very different about myself. It was a feeling as if I had lost a part of myself. The memories of the past gradually resurfaced in my mind, as though they were buried deep inside, waiting for a chance to explode. I couldn't remember exactly what had happened, but one thing was certain. I felt different. The strong, intense emotions I once had no longer existed. Instead, there was a strange emptiness that I couldn't explain. It wasn't the peacefulness I wanted, but a vague anxiety that couldn't be expressed. It seemed like a part of me had vanished, and now I was facing an incomplete self. I couldn't understand the difference between the past and the present, but one thing I know for sure is that I'm no longer the same person. The emotions I used to have seem like waves of nostalgia, but I can't find their source. The memories are like they've been hidden in the dark, and I can't unlock the door to see them. This leads me to question whether stopping the medicine was a mistake. Or did the medicine change me in a way that I can't recognize? All I feel is loss and emptiness. Even though I try to find myself again, I cannot remember who I was before I took the medicine. But after everything, could this change be part of the process of growing up? Or is it simply a sign that I've lost what once defined me? These questions haunt me, and even though I try to forget, I can't avoid the truth that something significant has changed in me. Something I can't grasp, but can feel every time I look back. After my parents decided to stop giving me the medication, everything began to change in a strange way. The days passed in silence, and I felt like I had lost an important part of myself. Everything, my emotions, my thoughts, became vague and unclear. But what confused me the most was a strange sense of unease, as if something significant was happening that I couldn't grasp. Every morning I woke up to find myself sinking into this fog, unable to remember exactly what had happened the day before, but always feeling a lingering anxiety. Not long after, I realized that old memories, fragments of the past I thought I had forgotten, were slowly resurfacing. These memories weren't specific events, but rather feelings, shifts in my mood, reactions I had in those moments. At those times, I couldn't help but wonder if all of this change was the result of stopping the medication, or was there something deeper inside me that I hadn't yet fully understood? There was one moment when I suddenly recalled the feeling of being abandoned. It wasn't a sudden shock, but something lingering, persistent. I couldn't remember exactly why I felt that way, but I knew I had experienced some form of emotional hurt. In those moments, I felt like I was being forgotten, left alone in the dark. The people around me, including my family, seemed to no longer understand me. Their questions, their concerns, no longer comforted me. I couldn't explain to them how I felt because I couldn't understand it myself. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger, a person I couldn't recognize. My hair had grown longer, my eyes seemed duller, and the smile I once had was hidden somewhere. I couldn't recognize myself anymore. That feeling was like I was standing in a dark room, unable to find a way out. I was still alive, still existing, but there was a part of me that had disappeared. It wasn't what I wanted, but it was something I couldn't change. Perhaps I had changed too much, or maybe I'd been changed silently in ways I couldn't even recognize. These feelings weren't the clarity I had hoped for. It was like a hazy state, a state I couldn't escape from. Sometimes, I ask myself whether stopping the medication was a mistake, or did the medication change me in a way that I can no longer recognize? All I feel now is loss and emptiness. Even though I try to find myself again, I cannot remember who I was before the medication. But after everything, could this change be a part of growing up? Or was it simply a sign that I had lost something that once defined me? These questions haunted me, and although I tried to forget, I couldn't escape the truth that something had profoundly changed in me, something I couldn't grasp but could feel every time I looked back. Sometimes, I suddenly remember a feeling that I never forgot, the feeling of being hurt without knowing why. These memories aren't clear. They come up in fleeting moments, like a sudden rainstorm. The feeling of being left alone, the feeling of not being understood or shared with. These feelings made me feel confused, unable to explain them. But one thing I know for sure is that it was a deep wound I couldn't speak about because I couldn't find a way to express it. Gradually, I came to realize that these vague memories weren't just random. They were linked to each other, like pieces of a puzzle. I started to notice that the feeling of emptiness, the feeling of not being able to remember why I felt this way, was the result of something buried deep within. Perhaps it was pain I had tried to forget, but it still lingered in me, never leaving. That feeling wasn't something I could control. It was something much bigger, more powerful than anything I could understand. And then, I had to face a question I never thought I'd ask. Was all of this a part of me, or was it something I couldn't see, couldn't fully understand? Was it these changes that had shaped me, or had I been shaped by things beyond my control? The answer wasn't something I could find right away. It was something I had to face every day, every hour. But one thing I know for sure is that all these feelings aren't something I can easily forget. It's like a wound that won't heal, a pain that can't be soothed. And while I try to find the answers, I can only live in this haze, unable to know whether it was the result of stopping the medication or a deeper change I haven't fully understood yet. When I began to feel changes within myself, a strange sensation started to rise. It wasn't an obvious change that could be seen immediately, but something deeper, an inexplicable shift, as if darkness was quietly creeping over me. I couldn't remember specific moments clearly, but one thing I was sure of: my emotions, the ones I once understood so well, now seemed blurry and unclear. I no longer felt the anger or joy that I once knew so vividly. Those sharp emotions had become like faint clouds drifting away. I couldn't explain why, but every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger. The person I saw wasn't Mano, the person I used to know. The reflection staring back at me wasn't a calm or indifferent person, but someone struggling with themselves. There was a sense of unease, anxiety, that I couldn't define, as if something invisible was weighing down on me. It felt like I had lost an important part of myself, like a chunk of stone had fallen off a wall, and I could never retrieve it. The people around me seemed not to notice anything unusual. They still looked at me as they always had, still spoke with me, but I no longer felt like I was part of those conversations. Their questions, their greetings, no longer seemed to affect me. Everything became too vague and meaningless. I asked myself whether I had changed, or if they were changing the way they saw me. Why did I feel so alienated among those closest to me? How could I go back to being the way I was before, to feeling like I was part of this world again. These feelings grew stronger as I couldn't remember events from the past. No matter how hard I tried to recall, I could find nothing but emptiness. The memories I thought I understood became blurred. Memories of conversations with family, friends, of simple joys in life were now just faint flashes of light in a dark night. Everything seemed veiled by a thick mist, and I couldn't find the way out. This sensation wasn't like forgetting something temporarily. It was more like an utter absence. It felt as if what I had lived through, what I had felt, was no longer a part of me. It was the encroachment of something I couldn't control, a silent change that I couldn't recognize immediately. And the scariest thing was, I couldn't remember the reasons that had made me this way. I couldn't remember why I felt like this, why I had this empty feeling inside me. Once again, I looked into the mirror and asked myself if all of this was truly happening to me, or if I was imagining it all. What I saw in the mirror wasn't me, but a part of me only that I couldn't understand. What I saw wasn't clarity, but a constant struggle within myself. Everything that I once thought was clear had now become complicated and elusive. I didn't know what I was trying to find anymore. How could I find myself when I didn't even know where I stood? Gradually, I began to realize that this feeling of loss wasn't random. Perhaps it was the stopping of the medication that had awakened something within me. Maybe I had been changed by the very emotions I hadn't noticed. Or maybe this was just part of a journey I had to go through to understand more about myself. But not all changes are bad. Perhaps this was my opportunity to discover something deeper about myself, about things I had neglected. These feelings still haunt me, but I couldn't deny that they were slowly helping me understand more about myself. Although I couldn't remember exactly why I felt this way, I began to accept it as a part of life. It was part of the journey of growth that I had to face, and perhaps when I come to understand it, I will find the way back to myself, a path I had long overlooked. What intrigues me is whether these changes are a sign of a new beginning, or is it simply my mind reacting to what I've been through? One thing I know for sure is that this feeling isn't what I wanted, but it's what I needed. A challenge I must face, one I cannot escape. And perhaps, as I confront it, I will uncover the answer I've been searching for. There are days when I can't escape this feeling. A feeling as if I'm living in a world that doesn't truly belong to me. The vague memories, the emotions I can't explain, constantly linger with me every time I wake up, leaving me confused and exhausted. It feels as if a part of me has been separated and can never be found again. In those moments, I feel like I'm being manipulated by my own emotions, yet I don't know why. I can't remember exactly what happened in the past. But one thing I know for sure, these emotions aren't random. There's a strange connection between them that I can't explain. The feelings of being abandoned, misunderstood, always lurk somewhere within me, making me feel like I'm living in a thick fog, unable to see clearly what's around me. I can't express these feelings to anyone because I don't even understand them myself. It's like a ghostly presence in my mind, without a clear form, but one that makes me feel like I'm not entirely myself. Every time I face someone or a situation, I feel like everything is passing by and I can't control it. I can't grasp my emotions, and I can't understand why there are times when I feel completely out of control. These feelings come without a clear reason, and when I try to rationalize them, everything just becomes more unclear. Am I too sensitive? Or is there something deeper happening within my mind that I can't fully understand? On sleepless nights, I often think about these vague memories. Everything spins in my head, but nothing is clear. Nothing has a stopping point. I can't remember every detail, but I only have those fleeting feelings of being hurt, of not being understood, and of not being able to escape from this confusion. Why do I remember the emotions but not the details? This makes me feel like I am torn between the past and the present, between what I've been through and what I'm living now. As days go by, this feeling becomes more distinct. I can't stop thinking about these strange emotions I am experiencing. Those moments of loss and emptiness. I ask myself if I made a mistake in the past. Are these emotions the consequence of everything I've been through in the years when I lacked love, when I lacked care? Or am I just creating these feelings to hide the pain I can't face? This feeling is like an unending spiral. I try to escape, but the more I try, the deeper I seem to fall. These vague emotions are not something I can easily discard. They haunt me, making it impossible for me to find peace in my mind. Every time I think I have escaped, they return, as if everything is pulling me deeper into an endless abyss. What scares me is that, in trying to rationalize these feelings, I only find myself losing more of myself. This isn't a material loss, but a spiritual one. I can't remember the emotions I once had, but I know they were once a crucial part of my life. I can't recall exactly why I feel this way, but I clearly know that this isn't a coincidence. When I try to revisit these memories, I don't just find the pain I had overlooked, but also a helplessness I can't explain. Why can't I remember the specific details of the past? Why do I only remember the feeling but not the precise events? These questions swirl around me, preventing me from feeling at ease. The feeling of emotional manipulation is not something easy to face. It's like a shadow, always lurking, unseen, but making me feel like I can't escape it. And just when I think I've found an answer, something else emerges, forcing me to rethink everything. The feeling of loss, the vagueness, and the emotional manipulation aren't things I can simply brush off. They still haunt me, making me face questions I can't answer. Have I been changed forever? Or have I just not found a way to confront myself yet? The answer lies somewhere in the darkness, beyond my sight, and I must continue searching to understand what's truly happening in my life. Another night passes, and once again, I lie in the darkness, trying to search for answers I can't grasp. These strange feelings still haunt me, as if something invisible is controlling me, guiding me on a journey I can't foresee. Every time I try to think about the past, a sense of emptiness blankets my mind. The fragmented memories keep coming back, but they're not clear memories, they're just emotions, fleeting impressions of what I once experienced. Something inside me is changing, and I can't stop it. The more I think, the more I feel like I'm standing on an uncertain road. Every step I take leads me to a place I've never explored, an area without any footprints, without certainty. I can't explain why I feel this way. Is this the result of changes I've gone through? Or is my mind trying to deceive me, hiding a truth that I'm not yet ready to face? These questions swirl in my head, with no answers, just the overwhelming sense of emptiness consuming everything. I start to wonder if I can continue living this way, in a world where I can't remember, can't grasp anything. This feeling of loss isn't something I can easily dismiss. It haunts me, making me feel like a ship without a destination, drifting endlessly on a vast ocean with no land in sight. Have I lost a crucial part of myself? Or is there something deeper happening that I can't recognize? There was one time I tried to revisit old memories. I tried to recall every event, every conversation, but all I could remember were the feelings. Those memories weren't clear images. They were just vague emotions about what had happened. I couldn't recreate the words, the actions, only the feelings of being hurt, not being understood, and the feeling of being unable to escape the confusion. Why do I only remember emotions, but not the details? This makes me feel torn between the past and the present, between what I've gone through and what I'm living now. As days pass, this feeling becomes more distinct. I can't stop thinking about these strange emotions I'm experiencing. Those moments of loss, emptiness. I ask myself if I made a mistake in the past. Are these emotions the consequence of everything I've been through in the years when I lacked love and care? Or am I creating these feelings to hide the pain I can't face? This feeling is like an unending spiral. I try to escape, but the more I try, the deeper I seem to fall. These vague emotions are not something I can easily discard. They haunt me, making it impossible for me to find peace in my mind. Every time I think I've escaped, they return, as if everything is pulling me deeper into an endless abyss. What scares me is that, in trying to rationalize these feelings, I only find myself losing more of myself. This isn't a material loss, but a spiritual one. I can't remember the emotions I once had, but I know they were once a crucial part of my life. I can't recall exactly why I feel this way, but I clearly know that this isn't a coincidence. When I try to revisit these memories, I don't just find the pain I had overlooked, but also a helplessness I can't explain. Why can't I remember the specific details of the past? Why do I only remember the feeling but not the precise events? These questions swirl around me, preventing me from feeling at ease. The feeling of emotional manipulation is not something easy to face. It's like a shadow, always lurking, unseen, but making me feel like I can't escape it. And just when I think I've found an answer, something else emerges, forcing me to rethink everything. The feeling of loss, the vagueness, and the emotional manipulation aren't things I can simply brush off. They still haunt me, making me face questions I can't answer. Have I been changed forever, or have I just not found a way to confront myself yet? The answer lies somewhere in the darkness, beyond my sight. And I must continue searching to understand what's truly happening in my life. The following days passed in confusion and anxiety that I could not explain. I kept living, but not in the peace I had once hoped for. Every morning when I woke up, I faced the same feeling of loss, as if something important had been lost and I could not find it. I tried to search my memory for what had passed, but everything seemed like an unmanageable mess. I couldn't remember the exact events, but I knew something had changed in me, silently and irreversibly. One afternoon, when I was sitting alone, staring out the window, a strange feeling overwhelmed me. I realized that throughout this time, I had not truly experienced life the way I once had. Everything seemed to be covered by a veil of fog, making it impossible to see clearly what was actually going on. The emotions I once knew so well had become vague, and I felt like I was living a life that didn't truly belong to me. That feeling was as if I was someone else, living in a body I could no longer fully control. What scared me even more was that when I tried to understand the cause of this change, I couldn't find any answers. The questions kept swirling in my head. Why do I feel so lost? Why can't I remember what happened? How can I find myself again when I no longer recognize who I am? These questions haunted me every night, keeping me awake, unable to find any comfort. Once again, I remembered vague memories of my childhood moments. I once thought were meaningless, but now seemed strangely important. I recalled standing alone in my room, staring out the window, when a strange feeling washed over me. It felt like I was waiting for something, but I couldn't identify it. Was this the sign of a change? Or was it just a meaningless moment, a memory that held no significance? One night, as I was sorting through my thoughts, I suddenly realized that perhaps I had been trying to avoid something deep within me that I had refused to face for so long. The feelings of loss, the feelings of being lost, might not just be the result of psychological changes, but a sign of something I wasn't ready to confront. I began to wonder if I was avoiding a truth that I wasn't yet prepared to accept. These thoughts were like a tangled thread. The more I pulled, the more I felt myself losing my way. But perhaps, trying to escape from these unanswered questions was exactly why I kept falling deeper into this spiral. Every time I thought I had found an answer, everything became even more unclear. It was as if I was chasing a shadow that I couldn't catch, and each time I touched it, I felt myself drifting farther away. I started to realize that maybe life doesn't always have clear answers. Sometimes, we can only live with feelings that we can't explain, with memories hidden in the darkness. And perhaps that's the way life tests us. We can't always understand everything. We can't always grasp all the answers right away. Sometimes, we can only live with the questions, live with the vagueness, and hope that one day, when everything becomes clear, we will find the right path. But in those moments of desperation, I felt something else. A small light. A hope that I couldn't explain. Maybe I don't need to understand everything right now. Maybe I just need to live with these feelings. Let them guide me to places I've never been. Maybe I just need to trust the journey I'm on and not try to control everything. Maybe, in time, everything will become clear on its own. And in the long, lonely nights, I asked myself, am I ready to face the truth? Or am I still trying to escape, living in the fog, in memories that I can't grasp? The answer might not come immediately, but I know one thing. Every step I take on this path will help me find myself, whether in the haze or in the clear light.